My name is Wanda Carver. I'm 34 years old. And this is the story of how I discovered my husband's betrayal, not with screams or scandal, but with silence, strategy, and a table full of people who finally saw who he really was. I still remember the moment it began, not the affair, but the unraveling. It was a Tuesday evening, one of those long, gray days in San Diego where the sky never decides if it wants to rain or sulk. I was at my office at Lithium Pharmaceuticals, halfway through a quarterly product roadmap when my phone buzzed. 6:13 p.m. Ethan, dinner with the engineering team tonight. New hire from Dallas. Gotta welcome him. I'll be home late. And just like always, I didn't question it. Ethan had always been the calm, serious type. A civil engineer who could talk blueprints for hours but clammed up the moment I asked how he was feeling. I used to find it endearing, the mystery, the focus. Now, I realize it was just silence that protected him. Silence that kept me out. Back then, I still believed we were a team. I wore my wedding ring proudly, made his lunch every Sunday night for the week ahead, and told people we were just going through a busy season. I believed in sacrifice. I believed that when he said I love you, he meant it, even if it came without a kiss or a glance. But betrayal doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes, it slips in through a detail so small it almost escapes you. For me, it was an email. 7:42 p.m., Thursday night. I was standing in line at a tiny coffee shop off Market Street, scrolling through emails. Most were work-related. But then I saw it. Subject, Friday's lunch at Verona confirmed for 12:30. Sender, Amanda S., HR coordinator at Ethan's firm. The email had my name CC'd by mistake. That was the first crack in the wall. Verona. The expensive Italian place downtown. The one Ethan once called pretentious when I suggested it for our 8th anniversary. I stared at the screen, reading and rereading the names in the thread. Amanda. Carl. Brian. Ethan. Friday? Last Friday? Last Friday, Ethan told me he was flying to Phoenix for a project bid. I had wished him a safe flight and texted him good night. He replied with a sleepy thumbs-up emoji and talk tomorrow. But there he was. On that list. At a restaurant he claimed to hate. On a day he told me he was hundreds of miles away. I sat in my car for 45 minutes that night. Didn't drive. Didn't cry. Just stared at that email until the screen dimmed and the parking lot emptied around me. I didn't ask Ethan about it. I didn't accuse him. Because something inside me knew, this wasn't the first lie. It was just the first one that slipped. That night when I got home, he was already asleep. Our bedroom was bathed in soft bathroom light, and his chest rose and fell in a rhythm that should have comforted me. But it didn't. It made me angry. How do you sleep so peacefully when your wife is shattering in silence? I stood there for a long time. I wanted to shake him, scream, demand answers. But instead, I just watched. And I realized, I no longer recognized the man lying in that bed. The next morning, I made an appointment with a private investigator. A woman named Carla Monroe. Sharp eyes. No-nonsense attitude. I liked her instantly. She didn't ask me what I wanted to find. She asked what I already knew. I don't want to be comforted, I told her. I want the truth. Just the truth. Carla nodded once. Then I'll find it. Just don't expect it to feel good. 4 days later, she emailed me a file titled, Report 6724A Ethan Black. I opened it in my locked office, blinds down, door shut. Each image loaded slowly, each one slashing me open like a paper cut to the soul. First image, Ethan leaving his office building last Friday at 12:28 p.m., dressed better than usual. Second, stopping at a flower shop in Pacific Beach. A bouquet of white tulips in hand. Third, him hugging a woman outside a silver BMW. Cheek to cheek. Fourth, the same woman, Lauren Bell, walking into Bianco with him. A high-end spot Ethan once rejected for being overpriced nonsense. But I remembered Lauren. Marketing director at one of Ethan's partner firms. Pretty. Polished. Early 30s. I had seen her in an event photo once, standing beside him at a project gala. The fifth image hit me the hardest, Ethan, leaning in close, hand on her lower back, laughing. I felt something inside me crack. Not shatter. Not explode. Just crack, like the first fault line in a dam. You don't hear it at first. But you know what's coming. But Carla saved the worst for last. A video still, time-stamped Thursday, 3:47 p.m., Lauren receiving a small Tiffany box from Ethan in the lobby of his office. She smiled, opened it, and put the bracelet on immediately. I stared at the grainy footage and couldn't breathe. I remembered seeing that bracelet on Ethan's browser a week ago. Silver. Aquamarine stone. I had asked what he was shopping for. He shut the tab and smiled. You'll see soon. I thought it was for us. A re-engagement. A turning point. It wasn't. It was for her. And he gave me a fitness tracker instead. 8 months ago, Christmas morning. He said, so you don't forget your health goals. Practical. Unromantic. But I still wore it every day. Like a fool. That night I took it off, laid it on the counter, and stared into the mirror. The woman looking back was tired. Pale. But beneath the exhaustion was something sharper. Fire. I wasn't going to confront him. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to be that woman who gets dismissed as dramatic, unstable, emotional. I was going to wait. Plan. Strike. And when I did, everyone he lied to would be in the room. This was no longer about heartbreak. It was about truth. And revenge. Quiet. Calculated. Complete. And Ethan had no idea what was coming. The morning after I read that report, I sat in my office at Lithian with my blinds still drawn, sunlight creeping through the gaps like it didn't care what had happened. I stared at the folder in my drawer, Report 6724A Ethan Black, and it stared right back. I wasn't crying anymore. I hadn't since that night. Something else had taken its place, resolve, maybe. A still, eerie clarity that told me, you're done begging for crumbs. You're done explaining yourself to someone who was already gone. Ethan didn't just betray me with his body, he betrayed everything personal. My style. My preferences. My heart. He bought her the bracelet he once told me was too dainty for me. Took her to the restaurants I used to beg him to try. Told her stories I thought were private between us. It wasn't the cheating that gutted me most. It was the realization that he repackaged my soul and gave it to someone else like it had never belonged to me. I didn't storm home. I didn't smash anything. I made a call to Carla Monroe. I asked her for one more favor. I need a contact from Equinox Gym, I said. Lauren Bell's emergency information. I saw it in the last page of your report. There was a pause. You're not planning anything illegal, are you? Carla asked. No, I replied calmly. I'm planning to tell the truth. Just not to Ethan. She sent the file by noon. Her emergency contacts, Linda and Douglas Bell. Her parents. A Santa Barbara address. 2 phone numbers. 1 landline, 1 mobile. I stared at the file for a long time. I wasn't sure if I would make the call, until I did. It felt like my hand moved before my mind could catch up. The phone rang 4 times. Then a woman answered. Hello? I hesitated. My voice came out quieter than I expected. Hi. Is this Mrs. Linda Bell? Yes. Who's calling? My name is Wanda Carver. I know this might be difficult, but it's about your daughter. Lauren. There was a pause. The kind of pause that knows grief is coming. Is she all right? Linda asked. She's fine. Physically. But the man she's dating, he's my husband. Another pause. Then an audible gasp. What did you say? I have proof. They've been seeing each other for at least a year. I'm still married to him. Legally. And in practice. We live together. I could hear the phone shift in her hand. You're Ethan's wife? Yes. And I'm not looking to attack your daughter. I'm just tired of being invisible. Another voice cut in, firm, male. Linda, who's on the phone? A woman, she whispered. Says she's Ethan's wife. Then he spoke, Douglas Bell. His voice was calm, but there was something dangerous beneath it. A father's anger. We need to meet her, he said. We're flying to San Diego this week anyway. For Lauren's birthday. Linda added, we have a reservation at Lou Jardin. 8 people. Lauren thinks it's just a dinner with colleagues. I almost smiled. Not out of joy. But because fate had just handed me the perfect stage. I have a proposal, I said softly. How about we turn that dinner into a real celebration? Of the truth. Linda was quiet for a moment. Then, slowly, she said, what do you want? Nothing, I replied. I just want to be there. At that table. I want Ethan to see me sitting beside your family. And I want Lauren to see the man she trusted was never free. Her answer came with a heavy sigh. We'll be there on time. And we'll follow your lead. Before we hung up, she added, I'll bring both of Lauren's brothers. They warned her about Ethan. She didn't listen. Maybe now she will. That call changed everything. For the first time since the betrayal, I wasn't alone. I had allies. And I had a deadline, Friday night, 8 p.m. Lou Jardin. 3 days to prepare. I made my next call to a divorce attorney. Carla had recommended her. Maureen Castillo. She sounded like someone who could take a man like Ethan and strip him down to the studs. Do you have evidence? She asked. All of it. Videos. Receipts. Security footage. And yes, she's been in our home. In our bed. There was a pause. Then a quiet laugh. Then we can get anything you want, Maureen said. Do you want quiet or public? Public, I said without hesitation. But not through media. Through presence. I'll have the papers filed Friday morning. He'll be served Monday. That night, Ethan came home like nothing had changed. Greeted me with a soft, long day, and a light kiss on the cheek. I nodded, hiding the storm inside me. I even smiled back. Do you have plans Friday night? He asked. I paused, then said, yes. A very special dinner. I didn't sleep much that night. But I didn't cry either. I was past grief. I was walking straight into fire, and I had every intention of walking out untouched. The next morning, I transferred all of my savings into a private account, one I had maintained quietly since the start of our marriage, at my mother's suggestion. Not to hide, just to survive, she once told me. That account now held enough for me to restart my life on my own terms. Thursday night, I went through every file Carla had sent. I backed up the photos and videos to 2 different drives. One stayed with me. The other went into my lawyer's hands. In a hidden folder labeled Tax Files 2020 on Ethan's cloud drive, I found dozens more photos of him and Lauren. One image, in particular, stuck with me, Ethan and Lauren curled up on the armchair I picked out from West Elm. Behind them, the candle I had ordered from Paris flickered softly. Ethan once said it smelled like burnt roses. Now it was background ambience for his affair. On Friday morning, I took the day off and went to my salon. I didn't say much. Just told them, make me look like a woman reborn. By the time I left, my hair was softly curled, my lipstick was deep red, and my eyes were smoky with liner. I looked in the mirror and didn't see heartbreak, I saw fire. Silent. Controlled. Ready. At home, I opened a velvet box buried in the bottom of my closet. Inside was a white gold pendant with a deep blue sapphire, my grandmother's. I hadn't worn it since her funeral. But today, I needed her strength with me. I put on the red dress I'd bought for our 10-year anniversary, the one Ethan canceled last minute, claiming a construction site emergency. The slit on the side danced when I moved. The back dipped just low enough to command attention without begging for it. At exactly 7 p.m., I received a message from Linda Bell. Linda, we've arrived. Lauren hasn't seen us. My sons Matt and Dylan are in position. Me, I'll be there at 7:50. Thank you for everything. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then, quietly, I picked up my purse. This wasn't just a dinner anymore. It was an execution, with crystal glasses and candlelight. And Ethan had no idea who he'd be sharing the table with. The air was crisp that night as I stepped out of the car. Del Mar's ocean breeze rolled gently across the street, lifting the hem of my dress like even the wind wanted to see what would unfold. Lou Jardin stood tall and glowing, elegant, secluded, the kind of place that made people lower their voices and raise their expectations. The kind of place Ethan once said was all show, no soul. Funny. That was how I'd started to see him too. I adjusted my pendant, ran my fingers down the side of my dress, and walked toward the entrance like I belonged there. Like I wasn't about to rip the floor out from under everyone at the center table. As I reached the door, a young man stepped forward, tall, dark hair, nervous hands. He looked just like the photos Carla had included. Matt, Lauren's younger brother. She's seated in the middle, he said quietly, nodding toward the interior. Our parents are still in the lounge. Dylan's at the bar, 2 tables back. Just say the word. I nodded. Thank you, Matt. He didn't say anything else, just gave me a small, almost reverent nod, like someone about to witness history. Inside, the scent of rosemary and seared scallops drifted through the room. A server in a pressed vest greeted me, ready to guide me to the table. I followed him past glowing candles, murmured conversations, and couples toasting to things I no longer believed in. Then I saw them. Ethan sat at the head of the table, laughing, with that same ease he once used when holding my hand during Sunday breakfasts. His sleeves were rolled up just enough to show the Seiko watch I bought him. The one he once said was timeless, dependable, like us. Lauren sat beside him, leaning in close. Her dress was soft pink, her lips curled in a knowing smirk, her hand grazing his wrist like she'd done it 1,000 times before. I felt nothing. Not rage. Not sadness. Just confirmation. This was the man who said he'd do anything for me. Except tell the truth. I reached the edge of their table, cleared my throat gently, and said loud enough for half the room to hear. Happy birthday, Lauren. Ethan froze. He turned, slowly, as if afraid that the voice behind him was one he had buried long ago. When our eyes met, something in him collapsed. His smile vanished. His jaw clenched. Color drained from his face like blood from a wound. Aurora, he began. I cut him off with a smile. Oh, Ethan. You didn't think I'd miss your dinner with your mistress, did you? Lauren blinked in confusion. I'm sorry, do I know you? I'm Wanda Carver, I said. You know, Ethan's wife. Legally. Emotionally. Historically. Her mouth opened, then shut. Her gaze darted to Ethan. And that's when Linda and Douglas Bell stepped forward from the waiting lounge behind me. Mom? Lauren gasped, standing abruptly. Dad? What are you doing here? Linda didn't look at her daughter. She looked at Ethan. Her eyes didn't blink once. Thank you for telling the truth, she said to me. Douglas followed, his face dark with fury. We thought we were celebrating our daughter's birthday tonight. Turns out we're here to expose a liar. Lauren's voice cracked. Wait. What is going on? You told us he was divorced, Douglas said. Said he was cheated on. Said he needed a second chance. You brought him into our home, Lauren. Into our lives. Ethan tried to get up. I can explain. No, I interrupted, reaching into my purse. I pulled out the USB and set it gently on the white tablecloth between the wine glasses. This contains photos, videos, financial records, GPS data, and even hotel receipts. All tied to Ethan. And you, Lauren. She flinched. I have emails. A surveillance video. A receipt from the Pacific Breeze Resort, paid with Ethan's company card. A card I co-signed. Lauren backed up a step, her face pale. You told me your ex-wife was unstable. Controlling. That she'd ruined your credit and fled. You said you couldn't contact her because of court orders. I raised an eyebrow. Court orders? Cute. The only court involved now is family court. And this dinner is Exhibit A. A server nearby slowly backed away, still holding a tray of appetizers. The room had gone quiet. Eyes were turning. Whispers rippled through the restaurant. I looked at Lauren again, and my voice softened, not out of pity, but out of exhaustion. You called my house once. Last April. You asked, is Ethan home, and hung up before I could respond. Don't pretend you didn't know. She opened her mouth, but Linda beat her to it. You lied to us. You lied to yourself. And now everyone knows. Matt, standing by the bar, stepped forward, hands clenched. You brought this man to my graduation. You hugged him in front of our grandparents. And he was married the whole time. Ethan finally snapped. Okay, that's enough, he snapped. This isn't the place. It wasn't the place when you brought her into my bed, I said quietly. When I was out of town at a conference. When you used company funds to buy jewelry for your mistress. That didn't stop you. He tried to speak, but I stood tall and said, I filed for divorce this morning. You'll be served Monday. If you try to touch any asset with my name on it, I'll drag every single one of these receipts to your company's board. Lauren turned and walked away from the table. No tears. No fight. Just silence. Like something in her had died. Or maybe finally woken up. Linda followed her daughter. Douglas lingered. We'll see each other again, Ethan. But not like this. Not around a birthday cake. I stared at Ethan one last time. His lips were trembling, but he had nothing left to say. He looked smaller somehow. Like the truth had shrunk him. I leaned in close and whispered, I hope this dinner haunts you more than any anniversary ever could. Then I walked out, heels tapping on marble, head high, heart steady. Behind me, the whispers grew louder. Plates were left untouched. Candles flickered nervously. And the only thing left at that table was the truth. The moment the restaurant doors shut behind me, I exhaled for the first time in what felt like weeks. I didn't rush to the car. I didn't cry. I walked slowly, heels clicking against the pavement like punctuation marks to a story I had just ended, loudly, boldly, and without apology. Outside, the ocean breeze lifted the strands of my hair, and I tilted my head toward the moonlight. The cold didn't bite like it used to. Not anymore. I wasn't numb, I was alive. I didn't need revenge in fire and fury. I had chosen exposure. A light so bright it seared the lies off Ethan's skin in front of the very people who once believed in him. When I got home, I didn't look back. Not at the dress I wore. Not at the folder I had packed with evidence. Not even at my phone. But by morning, the world had already found the story I hadn't meant to share. It started with a message from Sophia, my colleague who had been seated quietly at the bar that night. "Sophia, you didn't need me to hit record. Someone else already did. It's everywhere." Attached was a video clip titled, "Birthday Blow-Up, Wife Walks In. Mistress Stunned. Watch what happens." I clicked it. A wide-angle shot from another diner's phone. Blurry, but clear enough. You could see me walking up to the table, Lauren's face turning, Ethan's shock. The USB drop. Linda's voice rising. And finally, me walking away as the restaurant fell into stunned silence. It had over 62,000 views in less than 12 hours. By that evening, it was on TikTok, Reddit, and 2 Instagram gossip pages. I hadn't shared anything. But the internet had done what the internet always does: find drama, amplify pain, and serve it with popcorn. The top comment on one upload read, "She didn't scream. She didn't throw a drink. She just showed up and let the truth do the talking. Queen behavior." The clip was dubbed the Del Mar Reckoning. A quiet purge. But ruthless. Reporters started calling. Ethan's office line was reportedly flooded. And still, I said nothing. I didn't post. I didn't share. I didn't defend. I simply forwarded the video to Maureen, my attorney. 4 hours later, Ethan called. I didn't answer. Monday morning came, and with it, an official knock at the front door. A process server handed Ethan his divorce papers while he was still in his row. I watched from the kitchen, sipping coffee. No satisfaction, just closure. That same afternoon, Maureen texted me. "Maureen, Ethan's lawyer just called. He's willing to cooperate. Sounds like someone got spooked. The footage probably reached investors." Turns out, I didn't need to destroy him. He had already sown the seeds of his own downfall. 2 weeks later, Black Engineering and Partners, Ethan's firm, received a sudden internal audit request. 3 of their biggest project funders wanted a review of company credit card usage and conflict of interest disclosures. I wasn't behind it. But I didn't stop it either. By the end of that month, I moved out of our home in Claremont. I didn't take much. Just a few boxes of books, my grandmother's sapphire pendant, the cherrywood coffee table I bought with my first bonus, and a quiet sense of dignity that money can't buy. I rented a modest apartment in Mission Bay. Small, sun-drenched, and free of secrets. The view from the living room window overlooked the water. Every morning, I'd sip coffee with my bare feet resting on the window ledge, listening to the tide roll in and out, just like grief does, in its own time. 3 weeks after Le Jardin, I received an email. Subject, "If you'll allow me." From Lauren Bell. I stared at the name for a full minute. I didn't want apologies. I didn't want drama. But I wanted to know what she'd say when the noise died down. Her message was short. Thoughtful. Not defensive. She asked if I'd be willing to meet. Said she didn't expect forgiveness, just a conversation. I agreed, but only on my terms. A small cafe in Carlsbad. Mid-afternoon. No makeup. No audience. Lauren arrived 5 minutes late. No high heels. No jewelry. No smug smile. Just a beige sweater, hair pulled into a messy bun, and a face that looked like it hadn't seen peace in weeks. The moment she sat down, she said, I knew. There was no hesitation in her voice. Just a hollow kind of confession. Not at first, she continued. But I knew. Eventually. He told me you were depressed, distant. Said he tried, but you wouldn't fight for the marriage. I didn't interrupt. She looked up at me. her eyes red-rimmed. I believed him at first. He cried once. I thought, he's a good man in pain. I gave a bitter smile. He's always been good at crying. She nodded. When my parents turned on me that night, I realized I was defending a lie. And I was too proud to admit I'd been fooled. We sat in silence for a long moment. Two women who shared nothing but betrayal, and now, uncomfortable honesty. I didn't come here to hear you apologize, I said finally. I'm not looking to be healed by your guilt. I lived in Ethan's illusion for nearly a decade. I know how convincing it is. Lauren blinked fast. Thank you for saying that. I sipped my coffee. Sometimes the truth isn't meant to destroy, I said. Sometimes it's meant to free. We left the cafe without making plans to meet again. We didn't need to. We'd both survived the same fire. Just on different sides of the flame. 1 year after the night at Le Jardin, I celebrated my 35th birthday in a way no one would have predicted. There was no grand venue, no Michelin-starred chef, no husband giving toasts he didn't mean. Just me, my small apartment near Mission Bay, and a backyard strung with second-hand lights I'd hung up myself. I wore a simple olive green silk dress that flowed like forgiveness. The air smelled like grilled vegetables, fresh rosemary, and cheap white wine. And around the folding table sat the only people I truly trusted. Sophia was there, of course, my fierce colleague turned loyal friend, who once pressed record at a bar in silence, knowing I might need proof the world wouldn't doubt. Mr. Burney from downstairs came too, the kind old widower who had taught me how to patch drywall and install new cabinet handles. He brought his famous peach cobbler and a folding chair. My old product team, 4 of them, drove in from across town, each one hugging me like I hadn't just weathered the worst year of my life. And my mother. My brave, quiet mother who had flown in from Oregon every month for 6 months after the divorce. Sometimes just to sit beside me while I stared out the window, waiting to feel like a person again. We didn't have cake. We didn't need one. There were cupcakes and laughter and an old college playlist playing through a Bluetooth speaker with a crackle in the bass. No curated Instagram moments. No filtered smiles. Just joy. Earned, quiet joy. Around 9 p.m., Sophia was in the middle of telling the most outrageous dating story involving a cat-obsessed attorney, a taxidermy collection, and a bathroom emergency, when my phone lit up on the patio table. Unknown number. I tilted the screen to glance. One message. Happy birthday. I know I don't deserve to say this, but I'm in therapy. I'm sorry for everything. I don't expect forgiveness. I just hope you know I finally see it. Ethan. I stared at it for a few seconds, then tapped the screen off. I didn't save the number. I didn't reply. That was my victory. Not silence. Not pettiness. But choice. The power to say, you don't get to touch me anymore. Not even with words. Ethan's apology meant nothing to me, not because it was too late, but because I no longer needed it. He had already been reduced to a paragraph in a story I was no longer writing. The following week, I signed up for a local landscape design course. A quiet, 6-week evening class at the community center, a dream I had postponed for over a decade in the name of stability and partnership. Now I had no excuses left. Only time. And freedom. Our instructor was a patient man named Julio who believed that plants are storytellers. On our first day, he asked us to describe our ideal garden on a slip of paper. Most people wrote about waterfalls, koi ponds, or stone paths. I wrote, a place that's not perfect, but everything in it exists for a reason. Nothing needs to apologize for surviving. I folded the paper and tucked it into my bag. It wasn't just an assignment, it was the most honest thing I'd ever written. Some days after class, I would walk along the cliffs overlooking the ocean, letting the salt air sting my skin and remind me I was still here. Still whole. Still rebuilding. Other days, I'd sit at my window with a sketchpad and draw the way I used to before life got loud and men became the center of my decisions. I stopped checking Ethan's social media, though I heard whispers that his company had lost 2 of its contracts. That he'd stepped down as managing partner to focus on personal matters. I didn't care. Lauren, from what I heard, had moved out of San Diego entirely. Last I knew, she was in Portland, working for a smaller firm, laying low. I wished her well. Truly. She'd been a passenger on a sinking ship. We both had. But I was done swimming in those waters. Because here's the truth no one tells you, real revenge isn't about making someone hurt. It's about making yourself whole. It's not exposing someone on camera, it's standing in a room full of broken memories and not letting them define you anymore. I used to think strength looked like confrontation. But now I know it looks like peace. Quiet mornings. Clean counters. A home where nothing is hidden and no one lies to your face while holding your hand. Sometimes, peace is the final word. The punctuation mark after a sentence written in chaos. And I had found mine. 3 months into my landscaping design course, I submitted my final project, a conceptual layout of a coastal garden. It wasn't the prettiest one in class. It didn't have the symmetrical beauty others strived for. But it was honest. Winding stone paths led to hidden corners of shade. Vines curved around an old iron trellis. The centerpiece was a patch of wildflowers that bloomed in chaos deliberately. And in the corner, a small wooden bench faced the ocean. My classmates clapped softly when I presented it. Julio, our instructor, smiled at the end and said, "This feels like it was planted from memory." I swallowed the lump in my throat. Maybe it was. That same week, my divorce was finalized. I stood in front of the courthouse holding a manila envelope of finalized papers, stamped, dated, official. It wasn't the image I had imagined as a little girl in love with fairy tales. But it was closure. Clean and exact. No back doors. No lingering contracts. No more on paper strings. Ethan had signed everything. Quietly. Cooperatively. Probably because he knew by now I didn't bluff and I didn't forget. The house in Claremont was sold within 6 weeks. I refused to walk through it one last time. I didn't need another moment inside those walls. Let the memories stay where they'd already died, in the hallways of a home that stopped feeling safe long before I admitted it. When my attorney called to tell me the funds had been transferred, she hesitated on the line. "Wanda," Maureen said. "You could go after more. Assets, pension, public restitution even. With the evidence you have." "No," I said. "I don't want another dollar from a man who bought tulips for someone else with my trust. I have enough. And what I really wanted, I've already taken back." "Which is?" "My voice," I said. She didn't argue. After that, the world quieted again. Some days I worked from home, handling a few freelance product development consultations. Other days I painted. Or walked barefoot through Balboa Park. I wasn't rushing toward anything anymore. I wasn't scrambling to rebuild. I was just living. Slowly, without explanation. One early Saturday morning, I stopped by the farmer's market near my apartment. It was bustling with life, vendors shouting prices, toddlers tugging at balloon strings, the scent of fresh herbs and sea salt wafting in the breeze. At a small booth selling handmade ceramics, I ran into Sophia. She lit up when she saw me. "Wanda. You look so calm. Like dangerously calm." We laughed. She pulled me into a hug that smelled like oranges and perfume. "You know your video still circulates, right?" she whispered in my ear. "People quote you now." I rolled my eyes. "I didn't do anything special." "Oh, please," she grinned. "You weaponized truth with the grace of a goddess in heels. People worship that kind of calm." We grabbed coffee and sat by the shore, watching seagulls wheel overhead. Sophia nudged me after a while. You ever think about dating again? I chuckled. Not yet. Never? Never is too final. But right now, I'm just planting my own garden, metaphorically and literally. She smiled. You know, for a woman who set a restaurant on fire with words, you're awfully zen. I sipped my coffee. It wasn't fire. It was light. I just turned it on. They burned themselves. She clinked her cup against mine. To turning on the light. As the afternoon sun bathed the water in gold, I felt a strange warmth inside me, one I hadn't felt in years. Contentment. Not triumph. Not victory. Just peace. And maybe that was the real prize all along. Not watching Ethan's life collapse. Not making headlines or going viral. But sitting across from a friend, sipping a simple latte, and feeling absolutely no need to explain who I was anymore. That was power. It was a Tuesday morning when I realized I hadn't thought about Ethan in over a week. That might not sound like much. But for a woman who once built her life around checking his calendar, reading between his silences, and waiting for him to choose her over his lies, it was everything. I was planting rosemary on my small balcony, fingers deep in soil, sunlight warming my back. Music drifted from my open kitchen, soft jazz, nothing fancy. Just a soundtrack to a life finally my own. That's when I knew. I didn't need a finish line. I didn't need a final confrontation or dramatic closure beyond what I'd already created. Because I wasn't angry anymore. Not at Lauren. Not at Ethan. Not even at the version of myself who believed his excuses, defended his absences, and blamed herself when things felt off. I forgave her. She did the best she could with the lies she was given. And when it mattered most, she didn't shrink. She stood up. She walked into a restaurant, faced a table full of deception, and didn't flinch. That woman deserved grace, not regret. A few days later, I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten. No return address, but the handwriting was unmistakably familiar. Ethan. I sat on the couch staring at the envelope for nearly 15 minutes. Then I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Wanda. I won't take much of your time. I know I used to be able to twist words and moments in my favor. I don't expect that privilege anymore. I don't know how to undo what I did to you. But I know I've lost the only person who ever believed in me fully. I'm sorry. I mean that in the smallest, truest way a man like me can mean it. You deserved more than I gave. Ethan. I folded the letter neatly and placed it in the bottom drawer of my desk, under a pile of old journals. Not because I wanted to revisit it, but because it didn't deserve fire or drama. Just storage. Quiet. Out of sight. A month later, my landscaping class wrapped up with a small ceremony in the community center garden. Julio gave out certificates, hugged every student, and called our names one by one. When he handed mine over, he whispered, "Your garden said more about you than you ever needed to." I smiled, not out of politeness, but because I finally understood what he meant. My story wasn't about betrayal. That was just the inciting incident. The real arc was reclaiming my narrative, not through retaliation, but through rebirth. I was no longer Ethan Black's wife. No longer the woman who stood by while her husband wandered. I was Wanda Carver. Designer. Builder. Quiet storm. The week after the ceremony, I submitted my first application to a local landscape firm. A small, woman-owned company focused on healing gardens for recovery centers and trauma survivors. In the "Why do you want to work with us" section, I wrote, "Because I believe gardens are where things grow after devastation. I know this personally. I believe in spaces that teach us to breathe again." 2 days later, they called. Offered me a part-time position with room to expand. I said yes. That weekend, I celebrated by lighting candles around my apartment, turning off my phone, and sitting barefoot on the balcony with a glass of white wine and a sketch pad. I drew with no purpose, no deadline, no client, no presentation, just me, the sound of waves, and the joy of ink returning to paper. And I realized I had arrived. Not at revenge. Not at fame. But at peace. Because I didn't need Ethan to regret what he did to validate my pain. I didn't need Lauren to beg for forgiveness to restore my worth. I had already survived the storm. And now, I was building my own weather. My name is Wanda Carver. I loved. I was betrayed. But I didn't break. I rebuilt. The truth didn't destroy me, it released me. And if you're standing at the edge of your own betrayal, wondering if you'll ever feel whole again, you will. Maybe not today. But one day, you'll wake up, and your life will be quiet in the most beautiful way. And that will be enough. Thanks for watching Revenge Echoes, where stories speak louder than revenge. If Wanda's journey moved you, subscribe for more stories like this one, and leave a comment. What would you have done if you were in her place? Because sometimes, healing is the real revenge.